So the title of this video is True. China has sent 28 military aircraft into Taiwanese airspace on Tuesday, June 15th. I don't know what day that's going to be for you. Still June 15th. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be yesterday like it is for me. And I know it's cause for panic. I know that everyone's going to be freaking out, running to your bunker under your shed in your backyard somewhere in Louisiana, but don't panic because yes, 28 aircraft did fly over Taiwan, but nobody cares. Today we're going to talk about why, and actually I already went outside today to film a video about how Taiwan has antagonized itself in the international community, but it got too hot and I ran back inside. This was a mistake. I should have filmed this inside. But it's okay because I didn't have to wait long, because while I was filming, wouldn't you know it, 28 military aircraft flew over Taiwan's airspace, which I said nobody cares because this actually happens all the time. It's something that happens usually on a weekly basis. In fact, this is just the 4th time in June alone that this has happened. And 2020, 2021 are big years for this type of occurrence. It happens in the news pretty much all the time. It's all you hear about on your news apps on your phone. And so a lot of people in Taiwan just turn it off because they're so sick of hearing about it. That's why no one cares, and it doesn't really make international news either. What makes today particularly interesting is the amount of aircraft that entered the airspace. Usually the numbers aren't this high. Let me just read you off. Okay, my hat randomly went past my silent mode. The aircraft that entered are 28 PLAAF aircraft, includes 1 Shanxi Y-8 anti-submarine warfare plane, 4 Xi'an H-6 bombers, 1 Shanxi Y-8 electronic warfare aircraft, 2 Shanxi KJ-500 airborne early warning and control aircraft, 14 Shenyang J-16 fighter jets, and 6 Shenyang J-11 fighter jets. All in a single day, entered Taiwanese airspace. That's pretty crazy. That's also kind of scary. Normally it's just 1 or 2 anti-submarine aircraft, turboprop engines that'll fly in, and then the Taiwanese military, their aircraft will go intercept them, send some radio warnings, maybe lock them in with some surface-to-air missile launchers, just lock them on and tell them to piss off. What's also interesting about this one is that the Taiwanese broadcast 15 warnings to the 28 jets, this time saying that if anything happens, you are responsible. That's a little bit different from the normal dialogue, the normal discourse, with usually just telling them, you're impeding on my airspace and my safety, turn around now. This time you could also hear a mainland voice from an unidentified pilot saying, "This is high seas, go read a book," which is kind of funny, but it's also China's pilots claiming that this is, international waters and they can fly there if they like to. Okay, so now you know what happened today, and that it happens pretty frequently, and that's why nobody in Taiwan's freaking out. I'm still sitting at my home. I'm not running for a bomb shelter anytime soon. But the funny thing about this is it happened at literally the funniest time, the worst time for China, because G7 summit happened where the 7 leaders of the biggest economies, democratic economies, come together and they talk about things like, trade and world security and things that matter to them, and then never do anything about it. But for the first time, one of the things they talked about was peace across the Taiwan Strait. And so Taiwan's pretty happy about this, obviously, some international recognition that they're getting about some of the issues that they've been facing for decades. NATO does similar things to G7, except it's more countries involved and they're more military. And they're also, kind of worried about China. They're worried about them expanding their military, worrying about them building their nuclear arsenal, worrying about some of the claims over land that other countries aren't agreeing with, economic things they're doing with the Belt and Road Initiative, which if you don't know what that is, I filmed a whole video about it. You can go check it out. But basically it's just China will go into a poor African nation, loan them money. That nation cannot pay China back. China essentially owns that nation now. China has since fired back at NATO and G7, claiming that they have exaggerated China as a threat. China is saying that their policy is in defense in nature. Just they're in the pursuit of military modernization is justifiable, reasonable, and transparent. And also saying that these steps they're taking are peaceful, which is kind of funny because you can't really raise a nuclear arsenal peacefully. You're not building a modernized military to rival the States peacefully. The irony of what China is doing is not lost on anyone. Now, I know a lot of you are probably going to question the actual power behind the Chinese military, but I would question that at your own peril. If you take a look at some of the aircraft I mentioned earlier, like the J-11 and some of the other fighter aircraft that they have, those are almost exact replicas, copies of America's top fighter jets as well, stealth fighter jets. And that's essentially because they've been stolen.
Yoink! Yoink!
China's really good at stealing tech, and that's how they are able to build a pretty impressive air force. The West hasn't gone so far to say they want like a Cold War with China or anything like that, which is understandable, but what I think can happen here is that Taiwan can take a big step up and really gain a lot from this as far as international recognition can go. And I think that Taiwan can go a long way in helping these international organizations like G7, like NATO, because if G7 and NATO claim to want to defend their democratic values and defend their economies against a rising force like China, which does not have their best interest at heart, I think Taiwan can really help because Taiwan shares the exact same values. Taiwan is a democratic nation. They have their own independent economy that is somewhat independent from China, but still heavily relied on China. And I think that if Taiwan and these international communities can work together, they can take some of that dependability that they have on the Chinese market, the Chinese economy, and work together. Now, you might think, you know, Taiwan's super small. There's a population of 23 million people and it's declining. What economy could they possibly offer the international world, the international community? Well, Taiwan does have the world's largest superconductor I'm not a computer guy, really tiny microchips that the world is in shortage of right now. Taiwan makes the most of them. That is a massive market that, although is working with the international community more, I think that Taiwan and the world has a lot to gain by giving Taiwan a little bit more reassurance, a little bit more legitimacy. And yes, it would piss off China, but what's China going to do against the whole international body of people? Because the reason that people don't do this, the reason that a lot of the world has agreed to not recognize Taiwan as an actual country or in any official capacity is because they're worried what China will do in retaliation by economically isolating them, which they do to anyone who does. There's only a few countries left that do it, but there's only, you know, they will isolate those places and punish them hard for claiming Taiwan as a country or having any official ties to Taiwan. But if you're a huge international community like NATO or G7, there's not a whole lot China can do against all of those markets. They can't isolate the biggest 7 economies in the world. So I don't know, it's hopeful for Taiwan. I hope that China keeps making these ridiculous mistakes because they are really antagonizing themselves. It's really hard to defend Chinese actions. It's really easy to see what they're trying to be doing, and it's just kind of funny when they say they're trying to be transparent and this is defensive in nature when everything they're doing is as aggressive as possible. By the way, if you liked this video, if you want to know more about Taiwan, then consider subscribing, because when I talk about political things like this, I do sacrifice a lot of advertisers. They don't really want to be associated with anything less political. So yeah, a subscribe would help a lot. Actually, just checking the news, it does seem like the international community is starting to care, and this is making the news. So it seems like if China just sends 1 or 2 jets, no one cares. But if they send 28, then all of a sudden people start freaking out. 28 peaceful military jets that they're sending. Anyways, before I let you guys go, I do have time to check last week's top comment, which is something I used to do a lot until I forget, until Alan reminded me to do it the other day. So last week's video was comparing prices of houses between Taiwan and Canada, which nobody watched. Last week's top comment comes from Simon Huang, who says, even though I'm single, I'll take the larger haunted house in Canada every time. At least someone will keep me company. Small apartments in Taipei are just depressing. Interesting that a lot of people agreed with you there, Simon. Yeah, I think that a lot of, especially Taiwanese people, would be much happier in a large Canadian house, even if it is 100 years old and seemingly haunted, because the apartments, especially in Taipei, can get, like you said, pretty depressing, pretty small. I see a lot of people in the comments on this video talking about the depressing state of Taiwanese apartments with steel bars on the windows and drains in the kitchen that you have to fill with water every so once in a while, and tiled floors and tiled ceilings and tiled walls that you're just wiping mold off of. It's a pretty depressing state. I know what you mean, Simon. Anyways, I'll put that video hopefully in the top corner if I remember. You guys can check that out. I thought it was pretty good. Anyways, I hope you guys found this one interesting. I'm sorry I did film it inside. It was really hot. I had a whole video filmed outside, but I was sweating bullets, and trust me, it's not something you wanted to see anyways. But yeah, stay positive, keep your stick on the ice, and I'll catch you guys on the next